Ladies and gentlemen, Black Lives Matter joined protesters in Palmdale over the lynching death of Robert Fuller. And they asked the state to investigate because, the police department is very quick to say suicide, which, of course, no one is buying. So this came out on LA List. And it's June 13th, 2020. All right. Protesters gathered at a park in front of Palmdale City Hall today to speak out against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department handling of Robert Fuller's case. The 24-year-old Black man was found in the same park, hanging from a tree on Wednesday morning. A frightening image reminiscent of America's history of lynchings. The Sheriff's Department said the initial results of a coroner's investigation indicate Fuller's death was a suicide. Without going into too much detail, it doesn't appear there was any sign of fight or struggle. Lieutenant Brandon Ding told KPCC on Friday. But protesters today asked how that conclusion could have been reached without a full investigation or autopsy. If you can suggest suicide, I can suggest a lynching, said Laureate Stewart, one of the protesters, suggesting that Fuller's death was a hate crime. When the protests began at 11 a.m., more than 150 people gathered to demand an independent investigation of Fuller's death by the California Attorney General. Several protesters said they don't trust local law enforcement to properly investigate or prosecute the incident. Demonstrators chanted, "Say his name," echoing Black Lives Matter call for the end of violence targeting Black Americans. In the early afternoon, protesters moved to City Hall, to Palmdale Sheriff's Department, demanding answers to their questions. At least dozens of deputies were inside with their helmets on for an tense 45 minutes as chants continued outside. Eventually, Lieutenant Derek Ballantine came out to address the crowd, saying that there was an ongoing investigation into Fuller's death. When about whether he is open to an independent investigation by the state into Robert Fuller's case and how it's been handled, he said, "Me personally, yes, but I can't make that call. I have no problem with it. We're transparent," which we know police departments are not transparent in America. It is just something to say. Tensions were high, but there were no altercations during the protests. A white community liaison put himself between the protesters and the sheriff's deputy to facilitate. By 12:30, most of the protesters had returned to the park by City Hall. Some marched down the street on Palmdale Boulevard, chanting Fuller's name. At one point, some protesters threatened to cut down the tree where Fuller was found, but they were dissuaded. By 3:30, after two marches to the sheriff's station, the crowd returned to the park and a sheriff's helicopter began circling and instructing them to disperse. Guess it was too much for them, right? At about the same time, about 15 sheriff deputy vehicles gathered across the street from the park, but left as protesters shouted at them. Members of the Fuller family who live in Lancaster were present at the gathering. One protester speaking for the family asked others to pray for them and give them space. They are still grieving, she said. Protesters place candles and flowers around the tree where Fuller's body was found. Diamond Alexander Fuller's older sister was shocked by how small the tree was. She said she couldn't believe that Fuller, who was tall, at least 5'10" tall, would hang himself from a tree that was barely taller than him. We sat here just staring at the tree, she said. It don't make no sense. My brother is tall. My brother was not suicidal. He wasn't. Tommy Anderson, a friend of Fuller, said she saw him 2 weeks at a 7-Eleven store, not far from the park where his body was later found. The two discussed the recent wave of Black Lives Matter protests in the wake of George Floyd's death. She said Fuller was excited about the movement and seemed to be in good spirits. The two friends had a group trip planned to Las Vegas later this summer. Palmdale Mayor Stephen Hoffbeyer said at the news conference on Friday that there are only 2 cameras. So remember, there were no cameras, according to the report, around in that area, which makes no sense. So you have a city hall with no cameras around it. It makes no sense. How do you have no cameras in that area where city hall is? You know, your mayor is there. You have your prosecutors are there, but there's no cameras. I mean, that whole thing makes no sense. I never seen that before. Usually downtown in a city, even if it's small, they have cameras all around. Okay. So, because of the investigation, they said they don't have video evidence of what happened in the early hours on Wednesday morning before Fuller's body was found. They asked members of the public to come forward if they heard or saw anything. We encourage anyone with information about this incident to call the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau. The city of Palmdale announced in a press release this morning that officials support the protesters, call for a full investigation. We will settle for nothing less than a thorough accounting of this matter, the statement said. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know, it's the usual thing. The NAACP is also come on the surface, and they are asking for a full investigation into Robert Fuller's death. Okay. And apparently there was another shooting recently of a person by the name of Michael Thomas. And so they are asking for an investigation of Robert Fuller and Michael Thomas. The organization also asks that both investigations be expedited and that the families be given full access to updates immediately, saying they deserve to know if foul play was involved. Must negative interactions between the community of color and law enforcement also be deadly? The statement reads, public trust continues to erode after each incident. Wasn't the loss of George Floyd, killed just short 2 weeks ago, training enough? Fuller's sister said, and she and her family want answers from the sheriff's department too. It's like everything that they've been telling us was not has not been right, she said. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, just from the sound of it, I don't blame them for not trusting the sheriff's department. They're like any other police department you just simply can't trust. We've been hearing one thing and then we hear another. We just want to know the truth. So that is the latest update on this one. Boy, I really hope the family, don't settle for an autopsy through the county and make sure they get one independently. Hopefully, they'll be able to do it. And I know the GoFundMe is still out there for people if they want to make donations for Robert Fuller. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.